against a conservative base against Mitt Romney. Now they're going after them not only in South Carolina on television, also in Florida in the mail. We're starting to see radio ads in Nevada. I mean, this has always been Mitt Romney's real strength, is the fact that he's got this organization in other states beyond these first three, whereas these other candidates are right now just fighting to make it out of South Carolina and to Florida.
You know, if I can jump in and go back a little bit to Mitt Romney's response, this is forcing him out of his comfort zone and come out of his shell and explain what he did in the private sector. For the last 5 years that Mitt Romney has been running for president, he's been telling us, I spent my life in the private sector, I know how the economy works. But he expects us to take him at face value and just take him at his word,
right,
without him explaining why he knows how the economy works and what he has done in it. So as he starts to find his footing and make his response a little bit better, it may make him stronger going forward, so we can actually learn a little bit from him.
But that's one thing that's interested me. So we had, one of the things it's done is pushed him out of his comfort zone, where he talks about having worried about getting pink slips. Mm-hmm. Now that may have in fact been true, but it is so discordant with his image as a corporate CEO that it didn't ring true. That's one part, unforced errors. The other part, though, is speaking, as you were saying, about the economy in a way that people can understand the good side of Bain Capital. He still really hasn't done that, has he? I don't think.
I don't think he has either, but again, he's got 9 months to sharpen that response. But it's not just that, it's also, Mitt Romney has for a long time run a resume campaign. I spent my life in the private sector, I turned around the Olympics, and then I was governor of Massachusetts. But again, that's just saying, you know, I'm the most qualified, my resume should just leap off the stack at the top in the boardroom, you know. But he's also going to have to start talking about what he did as governor of Massachusetts beyond just health care. And so that tied to Bain and what he did at the Olympics as well, talking about these things more in depth and being forced to do it will make him a more interesting candidate going forward.
Right, no longer just assertions.
One of the things that has struck me about this race is the two candidates at this moment of such turmoil within the electorate, at this moment in which Washington and the establishment is, and as a matter of fact, all of our establishments are so mistrusted. Everything from the church to college football to, I mean, nobody trusts any person in a position of authority right now. Here we have the Republican nominee who best represents that position of authority and establishment, and a Democratic nominee who has had his own problems connecting with these sort of the middle-class voters who are going to really decide this election, the people who really do worry about pink slips. Dick Stevenson had a great line in the New York Times today. He said, if this may be a grassroots campaign, but neither of these candidates are cutting their own lawns.
That's very good. And in fact, Romney had that problem about the person who was cutting his lawn on the immigration question. Let me ask you this question. If it's not working in the elites, right? Because Mitt Romney was suddenly, Rush Limbaugh was rushing to his defense, and the Club for Growth, as Aaron mentioned. Okay, the elites don't like these attacks on Romney, but could they be working? Do we have any evidence they're working, and where would you look to see if they're working with actual human beings?
Yeah, we have to see some kind of reliable numbers out of South Carolina, and at the moment, I don't think the indication, I don't think there are any indications that it is working in South Carolina. Take a look at how Romney has performed in the first two states among voters who say the economy is the most important issue. He outperformed in Iowa, he outperformed in New Hampshire among those voters. In Iowa and New Hampshire, the unemployment rate is slightly north of 5%. Which is a lot better than it is nationwide.
Right.
In South Carolina, the unemployment rate is 9.9%. It's a state that's been mired in decades of sort of decline in the textile industry and other industries there. They just lost another couple thousand jobs to Boeing when Boeing decided to put them in Washington State instead of South Carolina. This is a state in which the economy is going to play a bigger role, if possible, than it did in Iowa and New Hampshire. Those voters, if they're going to stick with Mitt Romney, are going to give him an even bigger win.
The question, and your point is that since voters who care about the economy are picking Romney, they're buying this resume point that Aaron made, which is that it's sufficient that you were just in the private sector to make you a good steward of the economy.
The voters that I was just down in South Carolina for the last couple days, and the voters that I was talking to were, any time I asked them about the economy and how the candidates stacked up, they all said that Romney was the best to take that economic argument to President Obama. There is a deep-seated antipathy for Mitt Romney among the very conservative set in South Carolina, but they still want to win, and they still trust him with President Obama.
And that seems to be a smaller segment of the Republican electorate than I think we all thought going into this.
The anti-Mitt Romney, the super anti-Mitt Romney
Yeah,
people.
if you look at some new Gallup polls that are out, they show when they put all the candidates against each other and say who is the most acceptable candidate, Mitt Romney wins.
yeah.
And when they say who is unacceptable as a candidate or something like that, Mitt Romney's number is the lowest.
Right,
So
right.
he's
And-
most acceptable and least unacceptable.
And that was true in the exit polls coming out in New Hampshire, too. You had, would you be unhappy if they were the nominee? Gingrich's number was 65.
Yeah, yeah.
Paul's number 55. Romney, lowest.
And I think we also misread South Carolina a little bit. We think the South. We want to talk about Southern conservatives, but I mean, Aaron's from Ohio. Half of Ohio, when they retire, moves to South Carolina. This is not a state
You
that
have
is
my
dominated.
My
There
parents
you go.
intend to, yes.
Yeah. This is not a state that's dominated by evangelicals and social conservatives the way Iowa is. It's not a state dominated by fiscal conservatives the way New Hampshire is. In fact, if you take Iowa and New Hampshire and cram them together, you get something that looks an awful lot like South Carolina's electorate. So this is not the uber conservative battleground that we all think. Right now, all of these candidates are trying to appeal to that social conservative set. And Mitt Romney's the only one talking to the fiscal conservatives.
About the economy. All right, let's go through a couple of those other candidates before we get out of here. Rick Perry. He was, it looked like he might be out in South Carolina after Iowa, then he's back in. He's putting all his marbles on South Carolina. He was at the firing range today, putting lead on the target, as one does. Does he have a chance? Is he just trying to exit this race gracefully? What do we make of Rick Perry?
I think he wanted to give it one last go because he has never lost a race. And why get out now? And when you still have money in the bank, give it one last shot, and he should be able to appeal to South Carolina voters. Does he stick around to Florida because he's got that money, or does he just empty his bank account in South Carolina? I don't know. We'll see the day after South Carolina. His poll numbers are about the same as John Huntsman's.
Dismal,
in South
yeah.
Carolina.
What's the point of Rick Perry getting out right now? Aaron makes a great point. Stay in South Carolina, have a good result, bow out gracefully, perhaps. The problem is he's not really looking like he's going to get a good result in South Carolina. Take a look at the exit strategies for the other candidates. Why would Rick Santorum get out of this race?
Well, what do you make of
see a
where
reason.
Santorum is? I mean, the polling has shown Gingrich a little bit ahead of Santorum.
Gingrich, Santorum, they're 2 and 3 on any given day, I think. I mean, Santorum has done a lot. Santorum's crowds were pretty good when I was down there. The interesting thing, though, is where he's campaigning. He's not necessarily campaigning in the population-heavy centers. We've got a map going up later today on nationaljournal.com that shows where all these folks have been based on sort of juxtaposed with where the votes actually come from. And Santorum was spending some time in some counties that don't really have a lot of Republican votes. So I wonder if he's running his campaign in the smartest possible way.
Why would he be doing? Just they need venues, or he wants to spend time at the beach?
There
or?
are Republicans there. No, as a matter of fact, he's in the
inland.
Midlands. He's
strategy.
somewhere between Rock Hill and Columbia. He's down in Aiken. He's hitting the media markets in the middle of the state, maybe to the detriment of Greenville and Spartanburg in the upstate, or Charleston down in the Low Country.
Let's end on Ron Paul. I want to start with you, Aaron. Ron Paul's going to exist in this race till the end, even if everybody coronates Mitt Romney, as they sort of already have before the South Carolina result. So what does this mean for Mitt Romney? What does it mean just for the race going forward? There could be a situation in which you have Romney as the essential nominee, but then Ron Paul keeps competing with him in these caucuses and primaries.
I don't think it's going to be quite like Mike Huckabee was to John McCain, where he's still in the race and we're still paying him some attention. I think once everyone else drops out, other than Ron Paul, the media, I think, will go back to their default of ignoring Ron Paul. I think the bigger unknown is whether the call will be louder among conservatives who really want to find an alternative to Mitt Romney, or do they say, okay, it's time to stop weakening the nominee, everybody else get out? Which side can scream louder after
Right.
South Carolina about which way the party should go?
Right, and they've been looking for that alternative, and they keep not being able.
Right.
This meeting in Texas is an attempt, but I think we agree it's not going to probably get anywhere. What do you think about the poll?
The media may ignore Ron Paul. He's not going to win. We all know that. Every voter, most of the voters you see at these rallies, the first thing they say is, well, the only one who's not acceptable to me is Ron Paul. But historians will pay attention to him. Ron Paul has done more to change the language the Republican Party uses than anybody since Ronald Reagan and maybe even Barry Goldwater. I mean, you go down and you listen to some of these guys. Everybody's talking about auditing the Fed. Everybody is talking about the sort of reducing spending and getting us out of the war. Well, at least John Huntsman is talking about getting us out of various wars. Rick Perry, I think, wants to go back to Iraq. But I mean, these are all Ron Paul talking points from 2008. And now they're mainstream Republican talking points. So he's not going to win. He's going to play some kind of role at the convention. He might get an audit the Fed plank in the platform or something like this. And who knows? Maybe Rand Paul will be a presidential candidate down the road. He's already said he wants that national conversation. But Ron Paul has had a huge impact just on the language Republicans use. And I think that's something that people will pay attention to for a long time to come.
True, and he's also a stopping place for people who are so fed up with Washington and the fact that you can't ever hear anything out of a politician's mouth that approximates the truth to you.
Sure, but that was also the effect of the Tea Party in 2010, and all of the conservatives who were elected to the House and to the Senate who have made a big impact on Washington already.
A smart political observer said to me once that the Tea Party in 2010 was Ron Paul in 2008. Ron Paul's faction is the outgrow, or is the sort of the predecessor to the Tea Party movement.
All right, we'll end it there. Thanks, Reed. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks all of you for watching today, and that's it for our Reporters Roundtable. Join us here each Friday at 12:30 as we puzzle through the events of the week. And on this Sunday, join Bob Schieffer on Face the Nation. He'll have Newt Gingrich and Rick Santorum. Thanks very much for joining us. I'm John Dickerson. Have a great weekend.